Throughout the entirety of human history, the desire for women, cringe to say the conquest of women, has been central to being a man and a man's status or whatever. From Genghis Khan to Henry VIII to Andrew Tate, even MLK couldn't resist them snow bunnies. Women and the desire for women has been, for better or for worse, a central part, core to male existence. It's always been man's worst weakness in my opinion, and it's led to the downfall throughout history of many seemingly infallible and powerful men. The process of love and attraction and man's pursuit of the feminine has gotten rather complicated in the last few years, not to contribute to the male loneliness crisis video industrial complex, because that's so 2022. I think the red pill has done irreversible damage to the discourse. The red pill, those groups of people who promote and try and push the most puritanical and conservative views on sexuality and sex and intimacy, very 1950s.
You motherfuckers weren't there when this bitch lied and said that I got her pregnant when I fucking did it. And then you dumbasses 3 years later believe some bitch that makes the same fucking allegations again. You fucking idiots. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right fucking here.
Whilst at the same time promoting and living the most degenerate and hedonistic lifestyles and hanging around and impressing the same degenerate women that they curse so loudly on their podcasts. The group that say, "Oh, you gotta be stoic, bro. You gotta be stoic. Don't put women on a pedestal, bro. Women ain't shit, bro. Don't obsess over women." Then go back in the next breath to their fourth 3-hour-long podcast of that week talking about women, shouting, screaming, seething at women. Yeah, those guys. The red pill, with very few exceptions in my opinion, has been dog shit. And you can try and cope for a while and be oh, at least they push self-improvement, bro. They talk about self-improvement. I used to say this for a while as well. The reality is, how many of those guys who watch that kind of content improve and make something of themselves? Because they've been around for a while, Fresh and Fit and all those those channels, they've been around for a while, and let's be honest, it's not like their dead ass channels are getting any more fans at this stage in 2025. So their fans and their followers are people who have been watching for 2-3 years at this stage. Look at their fans and look at their followers. Look at the kind of things that they spew in comment sections or on social media in X or Twitter or whatever forums it is. And look at the kind of things they say and the things they kind of spew out.
They are vile, disgusting, basement-dwelling people. Do they look like they're people who've evolved or gone through much growth? Do they look like well-adjusted people? Do they look like they're people who are gonna build any meaningful relationships? Do they look like they're people who are going to go anywhere in life, or sound like
they're going to go anywhere in life?
They don't look content or seem no one content is leaving comments on YouTube videos and shit anymore. Let's be honest.
Unless it's this one. Please comment and and do all that.
But anyway, if you're in 2025 and you're still sitting there waiting, frothing at the mouth, waiting to watch your favorite podcast with your favorite alpha male sit there and debate, own and destroy a bunch of OnlyFans hoes who have clearly been paid to be there.
3 9s who you can think of who are women.
Megan Fox, Julia Roberts, and
If Megan Fox is a 9, how the fuck are you an 8?
No. She's a 10 to me. She's a 12,000.
She's an infinity.
Even if she's perfect. A 10, how could that make you an 8?
While you sit there
furiously edging your own dick at this revenge fantasy that you have of seeing the hoes that you hate so much, that have hurt you so much, get humiliated and owned on these podcasts. And you're doing that regularly, day in and day out.
You're not going anywhere in life. You're not self-improving. You're the only loser in this whole exchange. Let me make this clear. The podcasters are milking you for views and money and donations. The girls are getting paid to be there or getting paid in exposure and promo for their OnlyFans. Their OnlyFans, which, let's be honest, people like you are probably the ones who are going to be subscribing to at the end of the podcast, in the same breath while you furiously type your hate comments. They're all winning at your expense, both the podcasters and the women. When the cameras turn off, they're probably getting together, they're probably hooking up and laughing at you behind the scenes, laughing at your comments and how angry you get. You end up perpetually stuck in this pathetic phase, the incel phase, with no end in sight. The incel phase is one of the 4 phases you need to find your way through. But these podcasters, these content creators, their job is to keep you in that phase and make sure you don't get through it. So unless you were like a natural popular kid in school, like a natural Chad from like the ages of 13 to 15, the kind of kid who's had confidence his whole life, you know, he was kind of like always liked and had popularity, so that he had like that kind of positive reinforcement during the early age that allowed him to like just prosper.
If you were, you probably wouldn't be watching YouTube videos like this, let's be honest, but...
If you were, then congrats. You probably don't need much advice and you have like a very healthy, normal life trajectory, especially regarding relationships and dating. So, moving on. If you weren't like that, then welcome. Every man like you probably goes through the same kind of 4 phases of life when it comes to dating and like learning about dating and that kind of stuff. From hopeless romantic to incel to Chad to something more. Some guys get stuck in one of those phases, some guys evolve, some guys never evolve. This is a guide to the male dating evolution, where you might be right now, what comes next, if you're willing to grow. So we have the hopeless romantic phase. So at this phase, you're a young boy, maybe 15 to 16 years old. You're going through puberty, or you've just gone through puberty. You grew up watching the same shit that we all watch, you know, romance kind of movies and novels and like sitcoms and like, you know, rom-coms, that all that kind of stuff. Where like the underdog, you know, the nerdy underdog or the flawed like hero, he ends up getting the girl of his dreams and it all works and they all live happily ever after. Usually it all works out for everyone, right? There's a soulmate out there for everyone. You just have to be yourself hard enough and you'll get it. You think dating is, for the most part, it's like, you know, just be a good person, good morning texts, you know, write poems, all that kind of jazz. And it's not totally untrue, but you're only being shown one side of the story. But then reality hits you hard because she's into the objectively more attractive guy than you. You get ignored, text left unread, just feel quite invisible. No amount of being yourself will make them choose you. If you confess your feelings, you get like the dreaded, you're like a brother to me, if you're lucky. And then you go through the cycle and you get burned over and over again. You're starting to learn, being nice isn't enough. Looks do matter. Yes, they do. More so than you ever anticipated them to. Especially if you're a guy, and yes, even for guys, they do matter. Status does matter. Charisma matters. Confidence matters. Having an edge matters. And you realize that women, they're just like flawed human beings, just like you. They're flawed human beings who have their own self-interest, and they are selfish. They're self-interested and they want the attractive guy just like you want the attractive girl. They're not these selfless, like pedestalized beings who are going to turn around and like out of pity give the underdog guy like you a chance and just pass up on the objectively more attractive guy that they want. Because you're not the main character in life. They're the main characters of their own stories and they want what's best for them. And what's best for them, what's more attractive to them, just isn't you. And they're not going to give you the pity handy that you want just because it's what you saw in the movies. They have their own attractions too, and it's not you. Because girls had their Hollywood movies too. They had their own female-centered rom-com movies and their own female-centered like sitcoms and TV shows where they pined for the attractive, perfect Prince Charming. And they want him and he chooses them over the pretty more attractive like mean girl, you know, like Mean Girls, that kind of thing, that kind of dynamic. And usually in those female-centered rom-coms and movies, the guy that they're pining over doesn't look like you, doesn't act like you, and is nothing like you. So that's what they want. It's not you. They're flawed, self-interested, selfish human beings who are looking out for what they want and for themselves, just like you are.
Welcome to rejection.
That nicely leads you on to phase 2, which is the incel phase, which we talked about at the start of the video. It's when you start asking, why am I not good enough? What am I lacking? Why is this not working out? And unfortunately, we live in the age of the internet, so you go online and you find other guys asking the same questions. Misery loves company, am I right? And here begins the downfall. You blame society, you blame women, you blame genetic, you're bitter that they're not the pedestalized, selfless beings who are going to give you a chance that you saw in the movies. You get into the red pill, black pill, looks maxing, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately you become resentful, you become bitter, it becomes all you think about, and ultimately you become even more unfuckable. This is where you end up being that guy that we talked about at the start, who watches all the red pill podcasts. You watch all these podcasts as a form of like revenge masturbation. No growth, no self-improvement happens. This is where most of our brothers end up getting stuck as a consequence of social media algorithms and echo chambers and like pipelines and that kind of thing. And as a consequence of just becoming more chronically online, they never make it out. But here's the thing, you can. We have phase 3, the Chad, the hedonism phase. If you're lucky, if you stumble across the very, very tiny minority in like the red pill space and the male space that are actually helpful, then you might have a fighting chance. The parts that actually talk about self-help and self-improvement, most important thing, self-accountability, instead of the hateful, spiteful, rage bait content slop that's kind of plagues the rest of the space. Or you find a way to get out of the whole content pipeline altogether. You get some good people in your real life that help you become less online, for example, that can happen. And then you improve. You start exercising, you go to the gym, you get fit, you start getting pleasure and joy out of exercising and out of building yourself up and seeing progress until you start feeling like proud of yourself. Your style levels up. You start, finding things that work for you, style that works for you, that makes you feel good and makes you feel confident in yourself, that you can walk around with some swagger in. You gain confidence, you start learning about like what good body language is. You might even start like being more aware of your traumas and start trying to heal your traumas. It takes time at first, but you do an Arteta on it and you start to trust the process. Now you're the one who's getting a few DMs, a few messages. You taste a bit of validation, you feel powerful. Bit by bit, you start being the guy who's breaking hearts. And since this is your first taste of it after being so starved for so long, what's your type?
Everything.
You're binging. No standards, no filters. You're taking the whole buffet. Anything with a pulse feels like a win at this stage. But eventually, after you settle into your new place in the world, your standards start climbing slowly and slowly, day by day. Your filters and your standards are higher the next day and the next day and the next day. You develop a strong filter for who you're willing to be seen with out in public and who you're willing to let into your private life as well. Because now you have an image and a persona and status that you want to maintain. But here's the catch. The standard will keep climbing and climbing. And then you're kind of never satisfied because you're like, oh, but I need to like hit this standard. I need to hit this level of girl to be into me. And then your standards get higher again and you're like, okay, no, she's ugly. I need this level. So that's a dangerous game. You've learned the rules of the game now. You accept them and you start to use them to your advantage. You're still not perfect. You still slip up. You still slip back into old beta male habits and you take L's from time to time still. But now you're in the game. And so you become a bit toxic. Hookups, ghosting, ego trips. You're playing the game, but you're not playing it with purpose. And no matter how good you get at the game, you can't fully dodge heartbreak and pain. There will always be women out there more experienced, more strategic, and just better and more seasoned at this game than you are. And they can outplay you emotionally, and they will get you. Yeah, sometimes they will get you, and it'll sting. But that's part of the game too. Depending on how much inner work you've done, it can shake you to your core the few times you do get stung, destroying that ego that you spent so long trying to build all those years. So you become more wounded and less sure of yourself again. This phase is dangerous in its own way. It's addicting. It can be damaging to your own ego that you spent so long trying to build, as we said. Some guys never make it out of this phase, and they end up missing on other important, bits of growth in life. Career, health, that kind of stuff, because they get distracted by this. And worst case scenario, those are the guys that you see at 50 who are out in Thailand or in Southeast Asia somewhere with their fucking child bride doing sex tourism. All those dirty like massage parlors and shit. They've no money really and no future. So yeah, don't be that guy. But as we back to the original story, it gets old and you kind of start asking yourself like, is this all there is to it? And then you have phase 4, which is, I'm gonna call it enlightenment. You've been at the bottom, you've got to the top, you've had your ego trip. Now it's time for integration. You don't chase women for validation anymore. You don't hate them either. You just kind of understand how it all works. You stop needing to prove your worth to anyone. You become more intentional, more grounded, more selective. To be honest, this whole phase, this is the phase that I don't know how to get to be honest. But I've heard it's good. Dating becomes kind of like an extension of your values rather than your ego. You're not in the game anymore. You've kind of outgrown it. You've outgrown that kind of childish craving for women and female validation. And you realize they're not all that. They take a shit just like you do. They have those days, you know those days when
you have like food poisoning and you're sick and like you have like really explosive diarrhea and you're sitting there and the entire bathroom just stinks.
Well, most women all women, the hottest, most 10 out of 10 that you've ever seen has stunk up her bathroom with explosive diarrhea before. And after you've seen kind of those disgusting, kind of more icky sides to them, you realize they're really not all that. They're not salvation. They are just people who take shits, who stink up their bathrooms, who have messy rooms, and they smell bad sometimes, and they get sick. And what actually matters is you, and only you, and making sure you don't lose yourself, but not in a selfish way. So you become at peace with solitude. You become okay with being alone. You become valuing building stronger brotherhood and just being with the guys. No more chasing, and just frankly being okay being alone. Disinterested, almost. This is what it means being a man. Not angry, not addicted, just aware. Most guys never make it past phase 2. Some get stuck in phase 3. Very, very, very few make it to phase 4. But you can, and when you do, you realize that dating and women are not the end game. You are. Let me know which phase you think you're in and which one that you've grown out of. Peace.